Welcome back to Real Estate Ramblings. I'm Amy Shrader with Remax Real Estate 10.
I'm Ashley Hunt.
And I'm Michelle Hodges.
All right, we've about got the girls all back together. We're still missing Christina. So, what do you think was your biggest win in 2024?
Oh, goodness, 2024.
I know it seems like a lifetime.
I know, it really does, especially after the past few weeks. I'm just like, what happened in 2024? I'm going to let you go ahead and jump in on that while I give it a minute.
I think just watching the business still grow, even though we kind of predicted that, is it going to be up in the air? We've got a new president. I think my biggest win was just kind of still growing a little bit in the business.
Okay.
And I guess my biggest win, I would have to say, it feels like, they kept telling me from the beginning, just continue to plow, and about your third and fourth year, you're going to start seeing more of your own stuff develop. And I guess towards the end of the year, I really started to pick up and notice that I had a lot of my, I had just a lot of locals that were, coming out of the woodwork and that was really exciting for me, knowing that I had, I've got those folks that are coming in now and that are recognizing me as an agent now, as, that I'm in real estate.
You feel like somebody.
Yeah, I feel like that, like I said, I spent so many years working for, another company, like 30 some years. And so I think so many people just immediately attached me to that company, and that's what it was for them. So I think it's taken a while for people to restructure when they think about me to understand that I'm in something different. So I feel like that is starting to take hold some in the Morristown market. And so I guess I feel like overall that is my biggest win. And I hope to be able to continue to nurture that and see that grow more.
Okay. All right. Do you have a moment or a client from 2024 that just really stands out in your mind?
I would say multiple. I think I ran into some very interesting situations.
You always do, Ashley.
I do. With the other line of work has made me really run into some interesting characters. But no, I think like helping, a young couple get their first home and stuff. I think those kind of stood out to me. Just recently, I had one that had a deceased husband and with young kids, and he had passed away at a really young age, and I think that one has really stuck with me mentally. I think it was really meant for me to meet that person. So yeah, I think I've met several.
And I think we always do. I love the clients that I work with, and so there was some lessons learned for me this year as well on a few. But 2024 has been an eventful year for me personally as well. And so I will say, I think probably the biggest thing is getting through 2024 and being able to still keep my grasp on, dealing with the personal stuff that you have going on and still continuing to keep your grasp on the business, when you know that you're getting comfortable enough in it and learning it so that you can juggle both at some pretty tough times. So I guess for me, that is probably the best thing that's come out of 2024. I had a lot of great deals and a lot of great clients that I worked with, so it's none of that's actually no one significant thing, I guess, because the past few weeks have been so nuts. But like I said, I guess one of the things I'm most proud of, I should say, is being able to just bust it and take care of the things that I've had at home and still try to take care of the business too.
Okay. And you touched on something that brings up the next question is, we talk about our wins and, what do you feel was your major accomplishment in 2024? But what do you feel like were your missed opportunities from 2024, lessons that you learned? Like something maybe that didn't work out and you were like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
I can speak on that. I worked two ends of a situation, and I will never do that again. Never. It's been very interesting because it can really run into a conflict. it's hard to have the best interest of both parties, even though you mean well, doesn't necessarily mean that person's realizing that. So.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the biggest things that I learned this year is making sure. So I think, and I'm going to be careful about how I approach this, but I feel like, one of the things that I've learned this year is, when you have an out-of-state buyer who is looking at sight unseen, looking to buy something sight unseen, I'm learning a few lessons off that, and how to just be watchful and very cautious about how you handle things when you've got somebody who's got a home that's sight unseen. So that was a good lesson for me this year, one that I intend to carry forward.
Those sight unseens are hard.
Well, they are, because even though we've slowed down, you all know as well as I do, if a house is priced right and it's a good house, it's going to go under contract. You're going to get multiple offers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what happens is people from out of state get all in the air because they can't get here to see it. So they want to just make an offer sight unseen and then use their inspection to back out if they don't like it. And I know I had that scenario happen on one of my listings last year. And I think the only thing that we can do on that is make your earnest money non-refundable if it's a sight unseen property.
Right.
We need to ask more questions, I think, is a good one to do.
Well, and when those agents are setting up those appointments, yes. So that if you do get multiple offers and you do get one that just seems, that's just a little too good, you know what I'm saying? Then yeah, you're reaching out and saying, has your person saw this? Have they laid eyes on it? Because they're always going to have that, 7-day home inspection, whatever. Now, that's one of the reasons I like to list my properties on a Friday, so that out-of-state folks have that weekend that they can come in and look at the house.
Right.
And a lot of people say, well, I always list it on Monday because I don't want to be negotiating and having set up showings over the weekend. Well, just because you're lazy doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best strategy, for your client.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do what's going to get the most eyes on your listing. And if you know it's a property that out-of-state folks are going to be attracted to, you list it on Thursday afternoon, first thing Friday morning, and let it run.
See it. Yeah.
Now, there's going to be times where the seller says, no, I really want it to go, now. I don't want to wait. I don't know why, but whatever.
Right.
So, I still follow the client's instructions, but normally when we're at that listing appointment, that's when I go over, this is how I do my listings, and this is why I do them that way. And most of them are like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense,
It's kind of interesting to hear you say that, because I know when I did my training for real estate and stuff, you as an OG over here you will say, like, do it on Friday, but all through your training in school, it's always listed on Monday. So it's interesting to hear, the different scenarios that people do use and find that work better.
Well, and here's the thing. If it's a house that, locals are going to be looking at and buying, I don't know that it really matters as much. But what I found is that a lot of the properties I list, especially with lake houses or something, are going to be out-of-state buyers. Like, I already know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I came up with my game plan. And especially when the market went crazy, which is about the time you started selling, it was, you were putting a house on the market and it was going under contract. And ultimately, our goal for the seller is to get them the most amount of money and the least amount of hassle and time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's when I kind of created my strategy and said, we're just going to list them on Friday. As soon as I get 2 offers, we'll go into the multiple offer if that's what the seller wants to do. And I'm telling them, we're going to list it on Friday. By Monday at lunch, you're going to be under contract. And it worked. You know what I'm saying? Now, I can't necessarily tell them that today.
No.
Right.
You do still have some homes that go under contract that first weekend, but some of them are going to be sitting on the market a little while longer.
And I think that learning to have that patience, I think, because I think Ashley and I both did come into the market when it was, booming. And so things were moving so quick that if you weren't up and on it, you were going to lose that for your clients. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
If
yeah.
they called you, you needed to be able to be out there that day or the next to be able to show that property, or else it was gone. Well, now as you start to list more and you start to see, everything's not flying off the market. And I think it tends to make you a little nervous when that's what you're used to. So you have to sit back for a minute and learn to breathe it out and learn that that's okay. Doesn't necessarily mean that you've got the house too high, or that you've got it, that you've done anything wrong with that listing. And I think even now, like you were talking about, so we talked about the fact that the election affected all of that. You don't think the illness around our area right now has affected a lot of that? Those folks want, coming into our area when they see on the news that, whatever
UT
this
hospital
virus is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's, so I think a lot of people are avoiding the area for a little bit. So I think that,
Well, and the
that
weather,
affects it.
the weather played into
The
that
weather,
too.
right.
Because
I
people
was
know
slammed
when
this
East
snow.
Tennessee has snow, that like it's shut down. Which, last week we were joking and laughing and talking about how the Gulf Coast got snow. New
Right.
Orleans got 12 inches of snow. The beaches, even up to Myrtle Beach, got
Right.
snow. Ain't nobody traveling in that.
No.
You know what I
No.
mean? So,
But our locals were all over it.
some of them were.
Yeah.
You do with crazy people.
I did. I had a crazy weekend when it snowed.
Well, we had, like I said, I think all of those things affect that though. And I think the biggest thing is that you, just as you're going through the processes and you learn the patterns with buyers, as you're going through that, you also have to slow yourself down a little bit and remember to be a little patient. Sometimes it's not what we're doing, it's the market in itself, and give it time to settle down and do what it needs to do. We talked about that on a house last week because I tend to get a little anxious because I want it to go, within that first week. And you're
Well,
like,
what
just
you have
breathe
to
it out.
do, you have to look at what's the average days on the market, what's the median days on
Right.
the market. For me, median is a better representation than average, because your average is going to have, the higher end factored into
Right.
it. Whereas the median is like most of the houses are doing this right
Right.
now.
Right.
So if the median time on the market is 16 days and you've been on the market 3 weeks, are you getting showings
Right.
and no offers? Or are you just dead? You ain't getting nothing. You're not getting showings. You're not getting offers. You're not getting
Absolutely.
phone calls. If that's the case where it's crickets, then I think,
You got to readjust.
you've got to adjust at that 2 to 3 week mark. But, and you need to look at your price point as well, like go into Flex
Absolutely.
and look, okay, $200,000 to $300,000 homes in Hamlin County are selling in this many days. And you take that information to your listing appointments so that sellers can see, this is where I'm getting my information from. And if we're not under contract by this date, then the market has spoken and they don't like your price.
Right.
And that's when we've got to adjust.
Right.
So every listing appointment I go on, I'll say, well, this is what I think we should list at. But I'm going to tell you, in 2 to 3 weeks, if we're not getting showings, we're not getting offers, we're going to have to come down. And they're like, really? That fast? I'm like, yeah, that fast.
Right.
This number right here is why.
Right.
So now, over the weekend, I got a house under contract. It had been on the market for 3.5 months.
Seen that. Congratulations.
I was pretty stoked about it.
I seen that.
Um,
That's awesome.
But, I knew going in that we were slightly overpriced on this home. You know what I'm saying? And it's a $1.4 million
I was kind of
listing.
questionable on it when I first seen the listing. I was kind of like, where is she getting the numbers?
Well, here's the thing. If you don't see that house in person,
You can't appreciate it.
you cannot appreciate it. You really can't. Because they put top of the line. They had stuff in this house I didn't even know existed.
Oh, wow.
Okay? Like they had a geothermal heating system. So you had an 80-gallon water tank dedicated to that geothermal heating system because the water is what heats the house.
Oh,
So it's a
wow.
lot more economical. So then they had other water heaters, for the day-to-day use. They had some kind of smart lighting system. I don't know what else you would call it. but they could program what lights came on when you pushed a particular button. So when I went to show this house, they had it set up that when I walked in the door, I hit this one button. Every light in that house came on. So as an agent, to me, that's brilliant because then you're not fumbling trying to find light switches.
Mm-hmm.
I would tell agents, just leave them on. When you get done, you hit that same little button, and guess what?
That'll turn off.
They all turn off.
Whoop.
So, like, if your bedroom was, in one area of the house and you got up in the middle of the night and wanted to go to the kitchen, you could program the lights from your bedroom to the kitchen to come on with one push. I'd never seen anything like that. Of course, I'm easily amused, but it was, anyway. But getting back to this house, it had been on the market for 3.5 months before we got an offer. And I just told my folks, I said, look, this is the only real interest we've had. This is your buyer. We need to make it work. And I figured they'd counter, but they didn't. They took the offer. So that was pretty
This
neat.
wasn't your average
Right.
house price. I mean, a lot of people's like 3.5
Right.
months.
Right. And that's why I said it's a $1.4 million
That was
Right.
pretty
listing.
quick
Absolutely.
for $1 million house. So.
And I think that has
That wasn't lakefront, yes.
Yeah.
that plays a big factor in it too. I mean, like you said, a lot of it has to do with the house, the price point that the house is in. You can look at all those things like the, median range and all that stuff, but you also got to be looking at that price point that's going at. But like you're saying, that a $1.4 million house is going to take a special buyer. There are some homes that are just awesome and have great acreage and have all of these things that you need, but maybe they're in a rural area. Again, it's going to take a special buyer. So it's not like when you're doing it in the city of Morristown where you've
Right.
got folks here everywhere that are looking, and those things can go very quickly. You need special buyers for special properties.
Right. I would agree to that. All right. So let me ask you this. Being a realtor, how long have you been doing it now? Almost 3 years?
2 years. I just hit my 2-year mark.
I am working on 4.
Okay. How do you stay motivated as an agent throughout the year? Because we know this business has your ups and your downs. And even in the same day, you know what I'm saying? You can be up here
Oh,
and then get another phone call and you're just like, why am I doing this for a living? I hate my job. You know what I'm saying? So what do you do or what do you find that helps you to stay motivated throughout the year?
For me, I guess I'm kind of self-driven on that because I have been doing bail bonding, so it's kind of the same kind of scenario in a way. You're not selling houses, you're trying to get convicts, but you still have to be motivated. And believe it or not, it's almost the exact same. You would not believe that. You would think they just go to jail and they just call you, but you still have to market yourself. You just have to market yourself in a less classy way is what I say. But real estate is identical. So I think it wasn't hard for me on that. There's ups and downs on both businesses, but I've been able to kind of stay at it. There is days that I'm like, okay, it's been really slow this month, and what's coming. And I've come to you plenty of times like, what's going on? Why is it so daggone slow? But it's just part of it.
Agreed. You got to learn to ride the waves, and I think that one of the biggest things is you were talking about. You can get to the end of that day. You can have your high, and you get to the end of that day and have something happen, and you're just like, I do think one of the things you have to do is learn not to take that part personal. And learn that, you always look at those that fall through and you go, what could I have done differently? Absolutely every time. But if you learn your lessons from those and you move on. You cannot hang up on those things, because if you do, you will feel defeated all the time. I think for me, there's no bigger motivation than the wins. I love the wins and working with my people and seeing what their needs are. I find if I stay more focused on what my people need than whether or not I won or lost a deal, I keep plowing. Regardless of how, there are days that you're like, I don't want to today.
There's days where like you just get one blow after another and you look up and it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock and you're like, you know what? I'm heading to the house.
That's right. You
I'm
got
going to have
yes.
a couple of glasses of wine, and I'm going to hit it again tomorrow.
Yes. But that's just it. You have to come back tomorrow. And you can't let yesterday rule what you have in front of you today. And so I think I'm better when I stay. I love the wins, don't get me wrong, because they keep me pushing. And a lot of times when I'm getting the wins, I'll just tag them and go, tag them and go, tag them and go. I don't even stop to look at what those wins mean for me personally. But I love when I'm in that zone, just staying focused on what our people need, just getting them what they need and plowing through at times. You just plow.
I think it's important too to notice that not every person in your office is going to be winning at the same time. I think that was what was hard for me, is you would have people coming in and they're bragging, you know, it's been so busy for you, and then you're like, well, it's been really slow, and then you maybe the next month slammed and they have nothing. So still celebrating everybody's win, but acknowledging your own. It doesn't mean that you're failing, and I think that was hard for me in this business. I think the most is like, you may be winning at a different time than somebody, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
So
well, and I'm going to tell you, I think the reason behind that a lot of times, and that's another one of those things that as you mature in the business, it kind of works itself out. But usually what happens is you realize you're slow. So what are you doing? You're making phone calls, you're texting, you're following up with people that you hadn't talked to in a few months, and you're pushing, trying to create some traction, trying to get business.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're reaping the fruits of those labors, and you're showing property, and you're getting people under contract, and you've got closings to manage. So then what happens? You slack off
on this
from the prospecting. And so then you get all these deals closed, and you're like, well, holy crap, I got nothing to do. That's why you see the cycles month to month to month, is because most people, when they get 5-6 deals working, man, I'm slammed, I'm busy, I just can't do nothing else right now. And they're not worried about continuing to generate that business so that it's a steady stream.
Right.
And I can tell you from my own business, my Januaries typically suck every year.
Mm-hmm.
Normally my first quarter every year, I do bad. I don't know why. I think a lot of it has to do with the properties that I sell. But the first 3 months of the year, I'm like low man on the totem pole. But you let spring hit, and and it's going to be steady.
Specialize in those lake homes, which is they're not as visually beautiful, per se, in the wintertime versus the spring.
Right. And I mean, I do a lot of houses in town and stuff too, but you know, a lot of people, when they make up their mind they're going to list, they're going to do it in the spring.
Yeah.
That's just the market. So I just accept and don't. I used to get really hung up on that. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God, I've not done anything this year. Da, 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 da. And then it starts clicking. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, we're back on track.
I was like that in December. I could hear everybody bragging, and I'm like, I'm not getting anything. And then the snow hits, and I get slammed, and I was like, where did this come from?
Mm-hmm.
But I'd been hard on myself for the month of December, really hard on myself. So
I think we all tend to do that. Ashley, that's a great point. You come in, and I think for me though, like pretty quickly, I kind of learned that not to compare myself with the other agents in the office, and really just try to focus on growing my game, just like you were talking about, because it can be very defeating if you come in and you know you do. And when I see people come in, you like to celebrate everybody's wins with them, and not everybody per se brags about a win. You have your folks.
I don't know. We've got some pretty big braggers here.
But I said not everybody. We do have a few chest thumpers, but you know, I think every office probably has some chest thumpers. As far as that's concerned, I just think part of that's human. But I think what we have to do, there's a reason they're doing what they're doing, and there's a reason you're not listening to it. Do you see what I'm saying? You just got to go back and readjust it.
Right.
And for me, you look at what people are doing well, and then you move on. I mean, I love to watch what other agents are doing that, in my opinion, are adding to their success. So instead of looking at, but at the same rate, this is a process, and we'll all learn and grow and do it in the way that becomes successful for us if we continue to do that. But I can't, I'm not, even if I had a couple of those chest thumpers mentality, my path is still going to be different than theirs. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. And I think you have to look at, where did those people come from? What background did they have?
Yeah.
How well did it transfer to real estate?
Right.
But also, how long have they been in the business? What are their connections and stuff? And I mean, just like you said, I've watched it with several agents that, they come in and they're like lost puppy dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they really don't know what they don't know. And they don't know what
absolutely.
they need to be doing. And you give them a little bit of guidance, just generic. This is what a lot of agents do when they're getting started. You give them those steps, and it helps them to get focused. Mm-hmm. And so then, around year 3 or 4, they're hitting their lick and they're getting it.
I hear you.
And then you've got some agents who have been doing it for 20 years, and it's extra income for them at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
And they're just like, oh, well, if I sell a couple of houses a year, blah, blah, blah. So you just have to look, at each person.
Absolutely.
Lots of different people in this
And
business.
some will. I think a lot of me, though, I just noticed recently was a lot of the people that I thought were doing like really, really good may have just been tied in with a really good flipper. And, they may really have a lot of their listings coming from one in particular person, not so much that they have this big old, group of people. So that's been a really big learning thing for me, because I think sometimes I get down on myself, like, am I doing as good? Where am I at, on the market? And just learning as I go. So it's been
I think that is how we learn. I think you just be honest with yourself. But again, I truly, the blowhards, I'm just like, I don't want to hear that. I mean, I just move on about y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. But I mean, it just, you start to hear all that and I just block it out. Okay, great for your success. But I'm going to continue to focus. I'm not going to let, I really am happy. But except for those people that do like to rub it in your face a little bit. But, they're, like you said earlier, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said their wins don't determine your wins. So you know what? You let them win theirs and you keep focused on winning yours. I think
in our little group that we're real good at being cheerleaders for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michelle got a big $1 million farm under contract, and we were like, way to go, get it, girl. You know what I'm saying? And then, I've had a couple of you that have come to me almost in tears just talking about, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Why is it not? You know what I'm saying? And so we all need a cheerleader, and we all need to be a cheerleader sometimes, because everybody is going to be at a different point.
100%
I think a lot of it's scenarios too, like, when you're having things going on at home or, and just, I think I really like that our group is really supportive of each other. We can all kind of pitch in and be like, I know you're having a hard time right now, let's do this, or, is everything okay here? And knowing that, hey, you're not doing bad in the business, you're having a hard time in your personal life or whatever, and just kind of keeping people boosted and trying to know that they're still doing what they need to do.
Right, and our willingness to cover for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm sick, I know I've got 3 ladies I can reach out to and say, hey, can you take care of this for me? Mm-hmm. Even when it means taking my daughter to the doctor.
Michelle's been your great backbone on that.
She has.
She's stuck for you.
But even, Michelle goes through struggles with her mom right now, trying to get her even keeled. What do you need us to do? We're here. Yeah. What do you need us to do? Just let us know. And I think that's important, because in real estate, a lot of times you do feel like you're a one-man show. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's why I think having friends in the business that are really your friends.
Absolutely.
Is so important, because okay, I've got backup. Because everybody needs that backup from time to time. So I think that is one thing that I love about us, is that we've always got each other's back.
A lot of agents will come in and be like, I've got personal things going on, and just kind of drop the ball completely. And I think we do good kind of leaning on each other, like, hey, I don't want screw this client up or, do them any, bad justice. So just passing it on and still working, still being able to work on it amongst our group has been great.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think a lot of it is just looking at, it's kind of like you said, being able to list those on Friday, even though that's not the best day for you personally, it's what's right for the client. And there's been several times that I've had to call on Ashley or whatever, and I have, I love the client base, and again, I love those things that are coming my way, but at the same rate, I have to be honest with myself about what's on my plate and what I can do, and to really take care of my clients and what I can't do. And if I have to pass a client to somebody else because I just don't have time to get to them, then that's the right thing to do for my client, and that's what I do.
Yeah, you were talking about the listing on Friday thing. I think a lot of agents are so excited and so eager that they got a listing.
Yeah.
That, like, they just want to slam it on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, da-da-da-da-da. Let's get it on the market as quick as we can, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know that, are you trying to do your own photos? Are you hiring a professional? Are you taking the time to think about the verbiage and the advertising and all that you're doing? And for me, that's why I like the let's list the house on Friday, because then, if I can schedule the photos at like the end of 1 week, then that gives me the 7 days I need to, okay, this is going to be our social media plan, this is going to be the verbiage, this is going to be this. I have time to put my pictures in order. You know what I mean? So that you've got that grand presentation when you go into it. But
absolutely,
everybody's different. So, did you feel like you had to do anything to get your business kick-started in January? Or did it just kind of pick up on its own for you?
Mm-hmm.
The snow boosted yours.
I don't know why. I made a joke on Facebook and I think it bit me. I think I was digging more through December because it was really, I didn't have, really many closings through December. So I think I was digging more. So I think some situations kind of helped that, that scenario. So I think I dug more through December and November. And I think that has boosted my January.
Okay.
I really do think some of it has been organic for me. This January, I really do. I think some of that, just like we were talking about earlier, where you grind and you get your, try to do the best you can to take care of the people that are around you. So, and that continues to grow. So I do think that probably at this point, I feel like mine's been a little more organic and not so much intentional. Because I've had other things going on. I think my intentional part of that is to really pay attention to the clients that I have in front of me and take good care of them, because I know that's my strength right now. I'll be real honest with you, I don't have so much time for prospecting right now because of all that I'm dealing with. So I have really tried to be an attractor, and not so much a chaser. And I do feel like some of and again, I pray that to continue to nurture that and that continues to grow, but I do feel like a lot of mine has just been organic at this time. I don't think it's been quite so intentional, but I am super grateful for it.
You got a full plate right now. So.
Yeah. So, but I'm grateful for the progress that we're making. I'm not in any way saying, I've had to deal with some personal things. That's okay. Life throws stuff at us, but.
And at the end of the day,
around here.
We all have personal things that we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got Venus and I got Amber.
Yeah.
That's a handful. You're married. You've got kids.
Yep.
You're trying to take them to sports and this, that, and the other, and you're getting ready to be a mama. And, and you've got another business to run.
Right.
So I had to get a situation just recently. It was during the snow, actually, and I ran my tail off from daylight to dark during that snow. Some days I was like, good thing I had 4-wheel drive. But I had this one client that really had a situation that she had to get under contract really fast. And I was daylight to dark, we was looking, but I got to where she was looking all over the board. And I was like, we're going to have to get you down somewhere. We're going to lasso you in. And she was like, well, I'll just have to find another agent. Well, when you've sent me 21 houses to look at in the same day, there's just no way possible. There's no way possible. I can show you from daylight to dark, but if you're looking at one price point up to $500,000 houses, you've not got yourself in a situation to where you know what you need or want at this point.
Still kicking tires.
So I had to, break it down and explain, why we've got to lasso this in because you're too far on the surface. We ended up getting her under contract, and she was happy in the end. But that was one that I ran my butt off for through the snow. It was interesting.
One thing that I have found, probably in the past 2 to 3 months, back before 2020. I mean, that is just a defining year in real estate. You know what I'm saying? But back before 2020, we had buyer consults with people before we took them out to look at houses.
Uh-huh.
They'd call us and they would say, hey, we're thinking about buying a house. Can we sit down with you and talk about the process and da-da-da-da-da? Well, sure, come on in. And you would go over, what a buyer's rep agreement was. You would talk about, this is the process. First thing you have to do is get pre-approved. You give them lender recommendations, the whole 9 yards. And that kind of went away starting in 2020 because you didn't have time for all that. You had to get out and get the house shown.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, number one, I think the NAR settlement has helped us in the way that we have to have conversations with people now before we go show them any house.
Right.
But I have noticed a lot more people reaching out saying, hey, we want to buy a home, but we need to talk. They are initiating can we come into your office and sit down and have this conversation and figure it all out?
Absolutely.
Now, a lot of times they mistake what we do for what the lender does.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, we don't know how much house we qualify for. We want to know about the first-time home buyer programs. And I'm like, okay, so you need to talk to a lender first. I can explain the home buying process, but for you to know what the different programs are, what you qualify for, you have to talk to a lender.
Absolutely.
So, these people that I met with weren't even looking to buy until June because I guess of a school situation or something. But they knew enough that they wanted to get started on this process and they wanted to know what they would qualify for. And I told them, talk to one of these 2 lenders, then let me know, and we'll set you up on a drip now so that you can see what the market is. You know what I mean? So I think that's a great thing.
Oh, I agree.
That has come back is sitting down with buyers, having that buyer consultation, walk them through the process, get them familiar with that paperwork, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely agree. I've got some folks that are coming in and I'm really enjoying, we were talking about some of those things that are coming through organic now, because when those folks are calling you, instead of calling you about a specific house, a lot of times they're calling you because of who you are. So they're ready to come in, and I love that. Ready to come in and sit down with you and talk with you, and to me that gives you a much better idea of where this family's at, what they're looking to do, and gives you a better idea instead of hitting the ground running, meeting somebody at a house and rushing through about 4 showings before you even know who these people are, what their real needs are.
And trying to write on the back of a flyer their email address and what it is they want to see. And,
I love that. So I was actually supposed to have a meeting this morning at 8 o'clock with some folks that, they ended up having some car issues, so they're going to reschedule. But nonetheless, I 100% agree with you. I'm so glad we're getting back to the point that we can sit down with people and create a process for people again, instead of just running through it, because that's what we've been doing. And that's okay. That's what the market demanded at the time. It is what it is. We got to be flexible and we got to move. But I do think it makes for a cleaner, it makes for better education for the buyer. The whole process makes this just smoother when you get to know each other.
It's true.
All right, so my last question for you ladies today is, what tips do you have for either buyers or sellers that have decided 2025 is the year? They're either going to buy or they're going to sell.
Don't let the situation with the president, the presidential stuff, kind of determine where the market is going to go, because it's not really predictable at this point. I think last year we was all like, okay, here, come when the election is, it's going to change, and it didn't make that big of a difference on us. I mean, yet. It slowed some things down, but I think as far as interest rates and stuff, I don't think it's really made a big impact. Not saying it won't, but don't let that determine you. If you see a house that you like and want to see, let's see where you're at. Because, at one point interest rates were 18-20% back in the day, and now people are scared at 7%. So,
but I mean, you have to realize that rates were in that 4% and below range for
a long time.
Years, because they had just started going down to like the 4.5% range when I left SunTrust Mortgage in 2009.
Wow.
We rode that horse long and hard, let me tell you. So up until 2022, so that's a good 13 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes a difference, because I know, like in 2001, when I went into mortgages, yeah, I mean, we were refinancing people at 8.5%, 9% and saving them money. But
those days are over.
And I mean, I get where sellers are coming from. I looked at my end of the year, statement that you get from your mortgage company, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that my rate was like at 2.75 or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't sell my house either.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
even though I've gained equity in my house and I could sell it for much more than what I paid for it, I'm going to have to pay that much more or more to get a new house.
And I lose my 3% on my interest rate.
Exactly. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to die here.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. I'm still in my first house.
Yeah.
And you did good. You know what I'm saying? Like, this will be the third house that I've ever owned, but
I'm still in my first one that
that's great.
Well, I've been in
I've
mine
just been remodeling.
I've been in mine since 2013. I love my house. It's nothing fancy, but it serves our purpose for our
And I
home.
think you love your house more now that you've started doing some things to
Absolutely.
it.
So I have
That's
started
right.
being able, but I've been there when I first bought the house. Of course, I was a single mom, and it was important to me to be able to
Have a home.
right. And the inside of the house had been redone, but nothing had been done to it since I moved there.
This time
And
last
so-
year, she wasn't liking the house as much, though.
Yeah.
Heavily.
Oh,
Septic.
girl. Yeah, we had septic issues. Still got that stuff fixed. But you're right. So this year, I've really tried to focus a little bit on putting back into my house and doing a few things to my house. Got the landscaping done. I've worked on getting the painting and stuff done on the inside and making
Got rid
it.
of that above ground pool.
Yes, I know, but I miss it really, to be honest with you.
You didn't
I
even
miss
use
my
it.
pool. Not anymore, because of you. Because of you.
She's on her toes.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that as far as that's concerned, it's really tough for people right now, especially locals. I mean, here's what I'll say on that: when your average home price in Morristown is $300,000, I know a lot of people in Morristown. I don't know a lot of people in Morristown that can afford $300,000 house payment, especially at the
Today's
interest rates
market.
that they're correct at where they are. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people. I know some folks that can afford it. I know, but I also know a lot of folks that can't. So it's just not realistic for them. And I get that. But for those folks who are looking in 2025, my biggest advice would be choose your agents wisely. And when I say that, I'm saying we all got friends and we all know people. Do your homework though, because this is the biggest investment for most of us of our life. And so don't put that in somebody's hands that
just got their license last week.
Yeah.
Well, or just who do your homework on your agents. Do it. Make sure that it's not just somebody that it is. Make sure that they are committed to you and to getting the best they can for your home, or getting you the best deal you can for your new home. Do homework.
My advice for buyers would be, instead of trying to negotiate the price of the house, I would try to negotiate for a rate buy down.
Mm-hmm.
Because $10,000 towards a rate buy down gives you a lot more
Freedom on payment.
For at least 2 years. You get them to knock $10,000 off the price, and that might translate to $10-20 a month.
Right.
Whereas you do this 2-1 rate buy down, your payment's going to differ by $200 to $300, if not more,
Good point.
for that first year. So, we all think getting the best deal means getting it at the lowest price,
Right.
but that's not necessarily true. I think you have to look at the entire situation.
Understood. Agreed.
And so, that's the conversation I have with my sellers sometimes is, let's not do a $10,000 or $15,000 price reduction. Let's offer to pay for the rate buy down for the buyer. And then we can get the lender to make us up a flyer to show what the payment savings and all that is. Now, I think everybody thought that was going to be like the saving grace and the way to handle the higher rates. I think what's happened is people think back to 2006, 2007, when everybody was doing 228 arms. And then at the end of that 2 years, when their rate adjusted, they couldn't afford their house. So I think that scares some people. But my thing of it is, if you qualify now to buy a house, you've got to have a higher credit score than you did back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were doing 100% financing on people down to like a 575 credit score. You're not getting a house with a 575 credit score today. So, a lot of people, when you talk about doing the 2-1 rate buy down, they freak out. They start thinking, they're trying to do an adjustable rate. It's not an adjustable rate mortgage. It's just you're buying down your rate for an initial period.
Right.
And in 2 years, hopefully you both get raises at your work and, the market changes and rates go down a little bit. You don't have to wait on that 2 years to be up to refinance if rates do drop.
Right. It just buys you a little time.
And the thing of it is, you're going to have to qualify at the fully amortized payment.
Right.
They're not going to qualify you off that,
right. And that makes
initial rate
perfect
buy
sense.
down.
Sure.
So you're not going to be put, I don't think, into a situation where you can't afford your house.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Well, and a lot of it is what you choose to do with that extra income that you have on a monthly basis as well. When you have that, like you said, if you see that and you have that extra income on a monthly basis and you're taking that money and applying it to something different instead of, what I'm saying, having a plan with that money, and then being able to look back, keep an eye on the market, see what happens with the, the interest rates and things of that nature. Those things can be super handy. Super handy.
Yeah, and like you're saying, if you're saving $300 a month on that initial year, use that money to pay off your credit cards. Use that money to pay off a car payment.
Absolutely.
It amazes me, absolutely amazes me, that people will pay $700 and $800 a month on a car payment. And I'm just like, are you kidding me right now?
I know.
Are you kidding me right now? I swear, I think the highest car payment I've ever had in my life is the one I'm paying now. And it's like $300 a month, I think.
Mine's 13 almost.
For one car?
For one car.
Why?
Because it's how ridiculous it is right now.
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
So
I
I
could
didn't
not
finance.
commit myself.
I did not finance. Listen, you know what I did. I had this much money and I went, okay, I've got to find a vehicle that's more appropriate for showing houses because God love that Civic.
Four-wheel
I
drive.
torn the bottom out of it.
Honey, I was
So,
there, had
yeah.
one myself.
So but I knew I had this much money, and I'll be honest with you, when I went, I was dead set. I did not want a payment. So I said, this is what, and I knew that taking this amount out of my savings was going to hurt like the dickens. But you know what? It's paid for, and I don't have a payment. I am so grateful for that. And yeah, I get it because I kind of put myself at that little spot where I go, we can still get bologna. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
But
I get
then
it.
you restructure because now I don't have to worry for the next 5 years about some, the ups and the downs. So I do things like that all the time to make things easier for me personally to, like, when I get a nice closing, I'll pay several house payments in advance, or for me, it's just easier to take that hit on the front side than it is to worry about it over time. I just don't.
I totally get it. When I was new, I was renting, and I had a car payment. And so that was the one thing is whenever I had a closing, I made sure that all my bills were paid.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But then I would take and pay an extra month or two, depending on how big the check was. And so, there was a point that I think I was paid up like 6 months in advance.
Absolutely.
on my rent. And then when I'd go to get my nails done, I would pay her, like, here's $100, put it on my account.
I get it.
And so I continue that to this day. I'll pay her $100, $200, whatever, and then she'll keep track of it, and she'll say, okay, you're in the negative, I need some money. But to me, you have to do that in this business if you're going to stay successful and not, you don't want to be that agent who needs that closing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we all need closings, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But you don't want your financial need to interfere with your advice for that buyer or seller.
Absolutely. And that I 100% agree with that. But also for me, it was just, I know how I am, and I can tend to get tunnel vision on things when I get honed in on something. And for me, it's when I know that I've got that extra income at that time. When I get a good closing, I do the exact same thing. First thing I do is go back and I look at my bills. What can I pay in advance? And I will go ahead and pay that stuff out so that I know for the next few months, my mind don't have to be on bills. My mind can be on business. It just works better for me. And we're all different, so I'm not saying that's everybody's route. But for me, that works much better than having to worry about, okay, if I do have a rough month, it's okay. My bill, I get it paid when I have it.
Right. Yeah. I totally understand that. And I think for me, like the fear of not having money when I first started doing this, back in 2012, that is my motivator. That is what drove me.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And even though now I've been in the business 13 years, I still remember that fear.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it.
And so even though now, like, yeah, my January may suck, but I'm okay. You know what I'm saying? I still have that fear. And so, like, I'm always grinding. I'm always trying to get the next thing because I remember what it was like to be dead broke. I lost 25 pounds the first 6 months I started selling real estate because I couldn't afford to eat out. I was eating bologna and crackers for lunch.
Right.
And everybody's like, hey, what are you doing to lose weight? And I'm like, if you can't go out to eat, you don't lose weight. Like when you eating eggs for breakfast every morning.
Right.
But it is nice to get to that point where you're not so dependent on every closing.
Right.
Because I can remember, I had probably 3 or 4 deals working. One of them fell apart. And then another one fell apart, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going to have any money. I can't do this. You know what I'm saying? It's nice not to have that.
Right.
It is.
But it's also stressful when you start getting more bills to pay. You know what I mean? Because then you're investing in advertising, and you're hiring assistants and doing this and doing that. So, yeah. It's a little different.
You got your little machine there, Amy. That's what you got.
It's a well-oiled machine
She
most
got
of the
her
time.
a real estate machine.
Yeah. But, all right. Anything else y'all want to add?
No.
All right. Good deal. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.